that we thought might be helpful to consider as we move through today's discussion. To start, we wanted to just remind folks who may not or who may have seen this data before but lost sight of it, and for those of you who are new, that the majority of teens say they get the social and emotional support that they need. Um, we see that about 6 in 10, 58% say that's true, that they get what they need emotionally. However, this means that 4 in 10 teens are not receiving the emotional support that they need. So we know there is work to do and gaps to fill. We also know from some national research that parents are really overestimating how much they're meeting their teen social and emotional needs. This survey asked both parents and teens how much they always received what they needed emotionally. And 77% of parents said that they think they're meeting their teens' needs, but only a quarter of teens, 27%, said that that was true for them. And this finding is particularly important because it asked teens themselves what they felt, how they felt. In many surveys that are conducted with parents alone, so we have to be careful. We may be overestimating how kids are feeling or misrepresenting their reality. So that's part of the reason why it's so important to talk to youth and why it's so important that what Andrea was just describing around our Champions project, that we really need to hear directly from kids themselves. But also it reinforces how important communication is with kids. It's really communicating with kids is really at the core of helping them feel supported, especially in families. We also know from research that in order for children to thrive, they need to feel like they belong. They have to feel like they belong not only at school, but in their family and in their wider community or their neighborhood. So let's look a bit at family belonging. Within families, communication that truly involves the child's perspective and communication that really solicits their input is an important driver of them feeling that they belong. We can see from some state and national data that 6 in 10 Wisconsin parents said that they and their child can share ideas and talk about things that really matter. A third say they say, I'm sorry, 6 and 10, 61% say they do this very well. A third say they do it somewhat well, and about 5% say they do not communicate very well at all. And it's important to note that these are parent perspectives. These were parent responses to survey questions. We can also look at survey questions on family resilience. I see the numbers are a little wonky on the slide. Forgive me for that. Um, but when we look at family resilience, the data is collected around communication within the family, problem solving, that whether they can identify family strengths and their hopefulness. These as a package make up the family resilience measure. So these traits also build a sense of belonging, which we know supports child well-being. And we see here that Wisconsin families are about close to the national average in terms of family communication and problem solving. The vast majority say they talk and solve together as a family. Again, these are parent responses, and teens may think a little differently about this. When we ask parents if their family knows that they have strengths to draw on in difficult times, most Wisconsin families say they know this and believe this most of the time or all of the time. Likewise, the vast majority of families say that they can remain hopeful in difficult times. Other research has found that when parents talk to their kids about things that are bothering their child, that kids tend to feel more optimistic. So the process of talking through difficult things or problem solving in itself is helpful to children's mental health. Next, I want to look at some of the things that protect and nurture children's mental health. Research has shown that there are some key protective factors, And protective factors are the characteristics that reduce the likelihood of negative outcomes. They really play a key role in promoting positive mental health. And you can see that right at the top of that list is parental resilience, the ability to manage stress and bounce back after setbacks, social connections, which are positive and supportive, healthy relationships, access to services and access to resources that meet child's basic needs. That includes healthcare, food, shelter, education, and basic technology, and then problem solving and coping skills. When children have problem solving skills, conflict resolution skills, coping skills, they are better positioned to manage their emotions and to build healthy relationships, both within the family and outside the family. And when these protective factors are present, they create safer environments. They provide both physical and emotional support to the child. And of course, as I said, they foster healthy, connected relationships. I think many of us in the room have probably heard of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, but positive childhood experiences or PACEs are even more powerful than the adverse ones. Researchers have found that the number of positive childhood experiences can outweigh or mitigate the negative ones. So, PACEs are events and relationships that support healthy development and actually counteract the negative experiences that can come along. So they actually can tip the scales for a child in the right direction. And their researchers have identified 7 positive childhood experiences. We might not be surprised that the first one is the ability to talk with your family about your feelings. We just looked at the communication skills and problem solving skills. And so this is key. This is their first positive childhood experience. Also, feeling that your family supports you in difficult times, feeling a sense of connection and comfort to your community and your cultural traditions, and enjoying your traditions is important for childhood experiences. Feeling a sense of belonging at school is particularly powerful. And having a network of supportive friends, healthy friendships and relationships that are supportive is key. Having at least 2 non-parental adults in your life who generally care and show support. And then the last one is feeling safe and protected in your home by an adult in your home. So these are the 7 paces. Um, we also wanted to, I just wanted to touch a little bit on parents' mental health, their stress, and the impact on youth mental health. We know from some research that Pew did that back in 2022, that parental concerns and mental health was really the top concern that parents cited. 40% of parents at that time said they were extremely or very worried about their child struggling with anxiety or depression. So this was in 2022. It lines up with where we were in the pandemic, and we were really learning how bad the youth mental health fall impacts were in that fallout. But in a separate study just released a few weeks ago, um, we see that parents are still worried about the state of youth mental health. Nearly 60% of them considered youth mental health very or somewhat poor, and only 1 in 4 believed that youth mental health would get better in the next 6 months. So, this is an area that we want to pay attention to how parents are thinking and feeling about the youth mental health topic in general, um, but also within their own family dynamic, because children can absorb their parents' stress. And so we want to be mindful of a possible circular effect there. The same year as that parental worry study came out, NAMI also released a poll of teens, and that was particularly helpful to us because they asked teens directly about their mental health and how open they were to talking about it and getting help for their mental health. So the poll found that 2/3 of teens said they were open to talking about mental health, but they often don't start the conversation. And less than half of the teens said they would they currently talk to their parents about their mental health. So they're open to the idea, but they aren't the ones who are going to start the conversation most likely. Of those teens who said that they sought out mental health information, 95% said they trusted their parents for this information for mental health resources and mental health information. So that's an amazing result, and it's a very hopeful piece of information that nearly universally teens said, if I needed mental health information, resources, or help, I would trust my parents for it. So I know I only had a few minutes to talk about some of the data. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, who's going to hopefully share with us some real live parent perspectives.
Hi. So as Amy said, I'm Andrea, and I have the pleasure of hosting a little bit of a panel with a few parents who have, again, navigated journeys with their young people to find mental health and wellness. And so we're going to welcome Elise Harvey, Janelle Moneypenny, and Angela Clements. I think Karen's working on getting all of those folks spotlit. And anyway, so we'll just have about 40 minutes here. So settle in on, yeah, just having a real conversation of what it's like as a parent or a caregiver, navigating the twists and turns of child well-being and their involvement and perhaps their recommendations for systems and system providers, but also for other parents who are in a similar boat. So really, we're just going to start with an introduction of each panelist and just sort of sharing briefly your story around child mental health and well-being. Like, what is that looking like for you and your family? So, which of my lovely panelists wants to go first?
I can go.
Yeah.
So my name is Janelle Moneypenny. I am a person with lived experience of mental health challenges, and I've worked professionally in the mental health field for over 10 years. I live in rural Eau Claire County with my three children. They are 18, 15, and 9. My two oldest children are considered legally disabled. My 15 and 18-year-olds have ADHD, autism, anxiety, mood disorders, and sleep disorders. My 15-year-old also has been diagnosed with a trauma disorder. Both of my oldest children have struggled with suicidal ideation and have required hospitalizations after making attempts to end their life.
Thank you for providing some context, Janelle. We're excited to hear about your journey and your involvement. So thank you.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Angela Clements. I'm lived experience parent peer specialist. My oldest son has schizophrenic. My second son, that's now deceased, he was bipolar, manic depression. And now I'm parenting second time around with my granddaughter, and she has adjustment disorder and trauma, significant trauma in her life. So also, I come from a family with long history of mental health. My mother was schizophrenic, brother's bipolar, brother's suicidal ideation. So that's what give me the passion to work in this field to bring a lot of education into the community where we didn't so much know about mental health, so that it can get educated early on. Because I don't think I knew about mental health until my son went to school and a social worker started helping me. So for me and my community, I wanted to be the one to sit at the table so I can go back and let the community know that, this is trusted resources. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. I'm excited to hear the wisdom that you will share with us today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elise Harvey. I'm a parent support worker in Eau Claire County DHS. I also am a person with lived experience with my own substance use and mental health. And now I'm parenting a young man that has pretty significant mental health and trauma history. As a mother of four, my one, technically both of my sons, my oldest son was put on the spectrum, but it later, after some healing, it looks like it was more presented as childhood trauma. My second son has the defined ODD, ADHD. He does have sleep issues, and he is on the autism spectrum as well. So we're just working to navigate that and lift those voices up as well. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. And again, we had a little pre-panel conversation, and we appreciated that each of you have similar experiences, but also very different experiences. And so we're hoping to make some space to kind of lift those up. Just to hear again. So question number 2 here, what's your role in your child's mental wellness journey? And what has that looked like for you over time, at the present? Yeah, just kind of paint a picture for what's your role as the parent in their journey towards healing or just finding stability and wellness.
Well, I can go. Again, my name is Angela. As her grandmother, I stepped into the role of her advocate, protector, and just her guide to work closely with the school and therapists. I want to make sure her needs are understood and met. At home, I provide the structure, the stability, and a safe space where she can heal and begin to trust again. Even when I got custody of her, I have her now for 2 years. I tell her this is her healing season. My role is to walk alongside through the hard days and the good days, making sure she knows she is never alone and that her future is full of hope. So just making sure that by the first year and a half, I remember her telling her therapist, living with my grandmother, I realized what happened to me is not my fault, but my healing is my responsibility. So.
Yeah, all of that. Thanks, Angela. And let's keep building. Elise or Janelle, what has it looked like for you all to be kind of taking a role in your child's wellness?
I can go. So my son, I was incarcerated at the time of his mental health really starting to show up. And I was being a mother of biracial children. I was like, you just can't handle him because he's Black, and just different, like my own extreme bias. Because when I left, he was an adorable 6-month-old baby with just adorable, and I got along, I joined the journey. I got home, I started to experience the same behaviors. So and me and the caregiver at the time, we became like the team at the time. And just exploring services, as scary as it was to let systems back into our lives to help. It was necessary to prevent him transferring to systems we don't want him in. Having to find doctors, we used to have to travel. I think the more that mental health is recognized, the closer we can get it to home. But yeah, we just learning to understand it, giving him the space to heal, giving all our kids a space to heal, because they've all had significant trauma except our youngest. And so just giving them that space to heal, recognizing what mental health is, and understanding the diagnoses, and being able to be on their level and give them that space. So that's providing the home, and some of the things from the previous slides, like what was it, the PACEs? Yeah,
those positive childhood experiences. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Love that. And Janelle, what has it looked like for you to be taking a role in your children's mental health and wellness?
It has had a lot of different faces. I am their biggest cheerleader. I am their biggest supporter. I am their warrior. I am their advocate. I empower them to advocate for themselves, but also recognize that sometimes they can't. So I step in to advocate for them. Um, always have and will always continue to fulfill whatever role it takes that is needed to ensure that they stay alive and eventually get them to the place where they're not just surviving, but they're thriving. My 15-year-old also identifies as transgender, which, especially in a rural area and in our current social climate, has its own set of challenges and barriers to navigate. It's really a terrifying time to be a parent of a transgender child right now, especially one that struggles with their mental health on top of it. It's having to deal with school systems. I had the school tell me, oh, they're our first transgender child. And I said, no, they are not your first transgender child. They are the first willing to be seen and to be transparent about who they are and the journey they're on. And that is a huge, huge undertaking for them. And now it's your responsibility to be a safe place for them and offer an environment where more children can be open and honest about it. I've worked with the school to create and influence systems for LGBTQ youth. The Trevor Project reports that even having at least one accepting adult in your life can reduce the chances of a child attempting suicide by 40%. So even just having one person can be life-saving for them. And while I hope my child feels lucky that they have a welcoming and affirming environment at home, not all children have that. So I've really stepped into advocating not just for my own child, but to set the stage for other children to have that affirming environment as well, because not all home environments are.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And that is a profound stat from Trevor Project. Like it reminds us the ripple effect of feeling accepted and belonging. And just one callback I want to make, if anyone wants to share, when we were having our kind of pre-panel conversation, a few of us talked about our wellness and our adjustment as a parent and like how we function and how we show up impacts how our kids are feeling. And I'm curious if anyone wanted to expand on that a little bit more, like getting ourself together and how that can be a positive influence for our child's well-being. Anyone feeling moved to share a little more on that?
With my own struggles, my children have seen probably far more than they needed to of my own mental health journey. I actually have a tattoo on my arm. You won't be able to see it because of my blur, but it says, I gave them life, they gave me a reason to live. And I tell people all the time, and I've always been very open, my children saved my life every single day because they gave me something bigger than myself to focus on. And I have always been very open with them about my own depression struggles, but also that led to a lot of like guilt and shame on my part too, because I see my children going through the things that I went through and having a lot of the same struggles. And I had to kind of come to terms with my own feelings about it because I felt like I did this to them. They got it from me. It's my fault that they have to endure all of this. And I had to kind of find peace. And I make mental health a very normal part of our household. Like mental health is just as important as physical health in our household. And we talk openly about where we're at.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And Angela, Elise, anything you want to build on about how you show up as a parent, as a person in your family?
Yeah, I
Well,
can.
oh,
Oh,
go
you
ahead.
can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I can say like in the process, my children were involved in child protection. I was incarcerated. So in the process of getting home and trying to manage the mental health, I lost the time and the space to work on my own. So once everything kind of the dust settled, the kids were home, the life was starting, when my son would have his big behaviors, like I learned to identify it was really triggering me. Like, I changed my life. I got in a healthy marriage, not to be beat up by my son or beat on and so I had to understand and recognize like what is triggering to me. And, a lot of people that have substance use think trigger means they're going to go get high or drunk, which it's like it's way beyond that. It's the mental and emotional triggers, the elevated heart rate, the shaking, the nervous system, the instant fight or flight mode. Like you shouldn't have that in your own home, in your safe place. So I had to really learn to identify that and work on that. And the more I work on that, because it's never going to stop, I'm continuing trauma work to this day. It's easier to respond right to some of the big behaviors. And be that person that he needs, and not control or stop my triggers, but what more control, like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I know if I respond in this way right now, this isn't going to help. And so either I can step away or just really kind of center myself and focus on bringing that down so that it doesn't erupt. So it's just really understanding and recognizing. A lot of times, like I grew up with my parents having mental health, substance use. So I'm just trying to take the good from what they had and like just kind of leave the unhealthy things behind, but then build on that. So instead of having like, we can drink and smoke weed in our home, which we don't at all. Like it's not welcomed. It's not here. We don't do that. So we're trying to just take it one step further and provide that like safe environment, make sure that our mental health is regulated, and again, normalize it, and trying to use the words that like the kids identify. Hey, are you having big feelings? Where's that in your body? And just like giving them that space to not think that they're broken or something's wrong with them. But at the same time, like, hey, I'm struggling today too, or hey, I had a really hard emotional day at work. Could you take it easy on mom today? Like just owning it, making it, not the boogeyman topic, but safe and acceptable.
The realness, which is a great segue to Angela too, because I know you could talk for a long time about showing up and being real and your experience, and just being honest with your granddaughter too. So yeah, I'm not sure if you wanted to say more about your wellness and how that impacts your granddaughter in particular.
Well, yes, once I got custody of her, I always looked at it as she needed a safe place. But she actually awakened something in me that I had to deal with. I thought I was working on my mental health, but I have boys. But once she came into my home, I realized I still needed to work on that little girl that I didn't deal with. And so that trauma that I seen her go through reminded me of some things that I think I covered up and thought I just got older because I only had sons. So one thing about parenting second time around with my granddaughter, I was able to see some things within me I didn't work on. So at that time, I said I always thought that she needed a safe place, but I actually think I needed her also. So because this was something I actually needed to see, because it could have been damaging down the line if I didn't work on it now. So I actually got back in therapy to deal with, again, when you have that reflection, that mirror, I noticed there was some things as a child I did not deal with. And she showed me that in her own journey. What I love so much about watching this together is she communicates. I have never seen that in the Black and brown community because they always teach us we're kids. But what I learned in my household that she's a human being, she's a person. So I like the fact that I broke that stigma, I broke that generation curse, and that she trusts me. So it's safe. And she always talk about confidence. So the fact that I'd never seen that growing up, I never even seen that in my family, I never even seen that in friendship. I love the fact that she has that, and that um, I'm safe enough to know that she don't have to make the decisions that I have seen me or my kids make, and that it's going to be a healthy environment for them. So with that, I got back in therapy, and I'm enjoying it because of one thing she told me. I don't know if I should be offended or happy, but she said, you don't show emotion. That's probably why you're not married. So yeah. It's like, okay. And she was right. So that's I was like, oh wow.
It is funny how much children can be a mirror, and like that profound experience that we can have in our like dual relationship. So yeah, thank you. And I think each of you kind of shared a bit about that. So thank you.
Yeah, because she told me, she said, you don't hug me, you don't kiss.
Right.
He said, so if I look for that other places, at least I'm telling you so that you can work on that with me. And I was like, oh, wow. Is that
Yeah.
probably why I ran away and did certain things?
Dang.
That's why I got back in therapy. Like, did she just say that to me at 9? But then she said, that's probably why you're not married, Grandma. I said, oh, you don't have to go that far. But yeah, so I wait. Hopefully I'll be married by the next panel we do. No, don't.
Oh, you're funny. But here, so let's channel your granddaughter giving advice, maybe when it's not always asked for, but let's give some advice. Let's think about what systems and providers can do to better support families who are navigating mental health needs. And like, again, that sometimes services can be like the tippy top stuff, and it could be clinical versus that kind of school-based approach. Like, what sort of ways can systems, providers, really help parents like you, but also your parent peers, get involved and be supportive to your child's wellness? What comes up for you all when we think about that?
To listen to the parents and the caregiver, and treat them like, we part of the team too. I think a lot of times when they sit at the table, they talk over the parents and just listen to each other because of their expert. But I believe we was the expert because you see him for about 30 minutes or an hour, but we seen it all the time. So and then when they say some of the diagnosis, we just go home with the prescription and what they said, but I had no clue what they was talking about. So I have to go home and Google, and then I have to figure it out myself or go to other support groups to hear from other people. But I rather heard it from the person who told me. And then I learned it's not so much of trying to figure it out for the child. I needed to figure it out for me, because the more I kept trying to support the child, I figured out I needed the more support because I don't think they were getting it, but I needed it. So like it was still the same routine. So I'm like, I just better find my safe place because
Yeah.
burn myself out because they just did it again. So just let it
But
go.
isn't that interesting? Systems don't always think about the parent needing it. They're like, the child is the focus. The child is who we need to provide support for. But you're like, wait, hold up. What about me?
Yeah, I needed some training, some education,
Yeah.
especially when they said adjustment disorder. And I was just looking at them like, that's a new one for this old lady. I don't know what that means. So I heard
Mhm.
bipolar and schizophrenic, but what is
Mhm.
adjustment? So I had to go Google.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Elise or Janelle, what comes up for you all when we think about like school systems or mental health providers really making it easier to support parents to be really deeply engaged and navigate these services?
I'm going to echo something that Angela said that I cannot stress enough. Listen to the parents
Yeah.
because they truly are the experts on their child. What you see in a small amount of time may not be the actual reality of what's happening. I've actually had a medical provider tell me I had absolutely no clue what I was talking about. That is a direct quote. You have no clue what you're talking about. And then 6 years later, turns out I was right. We won't go into that. That was a whole thing. But school-based crisis supports for my children were a struggle. My oldest child was one of the first children to actively try to harm themselves in a school setting, and they had no crisis plans in place. whatsoever. So they were all just kind of looking around at each other like, what do we do now? My middle child, again, even though my son had already gone through some of his struggles by the time my second child started to struggle, they didn't know what to do. So it's really important to have those established and consistent policies and procedures in place before a crisis happens. I will never forget the day that my middle child tried to harm themselves at school. And I had a teacher come up to me and she was almost in tears. And she said, I am so sorry. I failed you and I failed your child, because they had tried to reach out to a community organization that, and I'm not going to give names because I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but a community organization that was meant for crisis support. And they told the teacher, you know what you're supposed to do. Since this happened in a school environment, we can't help you. And she's like, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And she felt horrible. And she's coming to me crying because she felt she failed. And that shouldn't happen. That should never happen. There shouldn't be school systems that have no idea what to do in the instance of crisis. In some states, it's mandatory to have mental health training and suicide prevention training for educators. Wisconsin's encourages it, but does not require it, which is really unfortunate. It's important that the people who are around children for extensive periods of time or put in charge of taking care of children know what to do and have established partnerships with different community organizations to provide these supports. And then to echo, be a safe space for the parents as well as the youth. Listen and have empathy. I will tell you that I was so afraid, especially when my second child started struggling. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to think that all of my kids are like horribly abused and neglected, because what kind of family, what kind of mom has two children who are wanting to die so severely without it being her fault somehow? I think about like that stigma of like the refrigerator mom created autism back in the day. And so that was really hard for me because I was afraid to reach out for help, because I was like, they're going to be sitting here, like, I'm going to go under investigation. They're going to think that I did something wrong. Like and I was so worried and stressed. And then there was nothing that could have told me that people weren't judging me in that moment. And it made it really hard to reach out. And then just realize that there's a lot of collateral damage with parenting and being a caregiver of children who are experiencing mental health challenges. In the moment, we parents can rally and we can be the strength and get us through those situations, but a lot of times we fall apart after it's done. And just remembering that sometimes we need support too, because like it's a really hard thing to sit there and go, wow, my kid just tried to kill themselves today.
Yeah, the gravity of that is not to be lost on anybody. So thank you for saying that part. Like, yes, we can maybe navigate a crisis moment, but after, then we have to deal with all the feelings that come up for us as the parent of that situation. So yeah, thank you. And Alicia, I want to give you space too to share what do you think systems or providers could do?
Well, I think like I like a lot of what they said about like not like listening to the parents. Like with me, I'm a wide open book about my own lived experience, having been incarcerated. And so of course I've dealt with the grief and the, you know, my child doesn't want to bond because, you know, he was separated from me at 6 months, and is this my fault? Or and you know, like when it finally came to the point that we did reach out to the system for additional help, like that's terrifying because of the fear of this, like the bias and the judgment of like, yeah, it's my fault, or because I have this past, I'm probably doing this, that, or the other to him, or I'm lying. Because initially my son would only act up. It was first in the foster placement and then at my house, and it's like, um, I'm lying, I'm trying to villainize him, just different things like, and it's sad to say, but I was almost excited when he started showing behaviors at school because it was like, it's not just me. I'm not like locking him in his room and neglecting him when no one's looking. Like I'm not making these things worse. I'm trying to get help. But then also like the pity. Like when we finally did ask help, I was reaching the point of asking for a 30-day assessment, and just the pity of, oh wow, you go through a lot, and like just how do you guys deal with this on a day-to-day basis? It's like, I don't, you just have to. I always say moms are superheroes, parents, period. But like just that, the lack of judgment, like I will give you the whole history. I will give you everything about myself and him, or anything I know. His dad is absent and incarcerated. So sometimes that's limited. Like you fear that judgment, like, oh, like she doesn't know his history, or like, no, I don't. It was a fly by night relationship, and now we're here. But just know like we are the experts of our families and our kids or our grandkids, and that our history, like if we're at the table with you and we're giving you information, like it's genuine, it's authentic, it's the best we have. We're doing the best we can in the moment, because as I've said many times before, raising three black sons is scary. My son has told the police to give him his gun so he could shoot him at one point when he was 8 or 9. And so like this is like his mental health, and having him get the best help he can is to try to literally save his life, or not see him running through the DOC system, villainized. Like I'm trying to save my child's life, and it's not always easy, and I don't always respond to him and the things he does to me even like the best. But like we we love him, he's ours. Like the thought of ever turning him back over to a system of oppression, and like is terrifying. I saw an earlier question about like the schools, like the doctors are pretty good. That pity look a lot though, like, oh, how do you do it's like I don't need the pity or that. I just need help for him. I think one other thing though is at the same time accountability. Like, don't always, because we have some mental health stuff at school, they almost let him get away with more sometimes. And so then it kind of, he builds on that, like, oh, I got away with that, so I'm going to do this. Or the lack of communication. Like I need to know day of if there's a situation at school, because if you tell me 5 days later, it's not fair for me to, because in his brain it's done, and so it's like to circle back and then try to have that accountability, the sharing of information, like email me, text me, just shoot me a message, let me know what's going on, so we're all on the same page. So just share information sharing.
Well, and if I can build on that and ask another question, I think you three are very involved parents and caregivers. And I think from the system of providers, a lot of times the I don't know, what am I trying to say? The stigma or the stereotype, that's the word, is that parents aren't involved. Like that there's some parents who just drop off their kid for therapy and then they leave, and it's like, oh, you're not doing anything else? Like you're not trying? What's going on here? And so I know that's not the three of yours experiences, but I'm curious just how you might provide an explanation to folks who are at the service side and they're like, hey, why aren't these parents showing up? They don't seem like they're involved or like they care. What would you say about like why your parent peers might be appearing like they're not showing up or appearing like they're not engaged? Because I know we had a good conversation about this in the lead up too.
I think that's their only respite. Like, you make me bring my kids to school. I am dealing with these behaviors the other, 16 hours a day. Like, this is my only respite for like school wise. Like, I'm doing the best I can, but I have zero time. Like with my own son, like we have to be one eye open when we're sleeping. And so it's like, this is my, you court ordered me to have my children in school. And so you got it for that 8 hours. But it may sound bad, but it's just capacity. We're exhausted. It's exhausting.
Yeah, that's real. And
Like
Angela, Janella.
my
Oh,
son
sorry, go ahead.
ran away one day and I was like, I don't look like I care, because I was like, I was actually upset. Like it's 8 o'clock at night. It's been a long day. Like he knows that this is a power play. I know it's a power play. And I was like, oh crap, am I doing this right? Are they going to think I don't care because I'm not sobbing and hysterical, or that I'm, so it's like, oh, that's our respite. That's what respite.
Yeah, yeah, that's real. Well, and the worry of what other people are thinking about how you react is also stressful. But yeah, Angela, it looks like you want to jump in.
Like when I didn't have the tools, I have them now, but when I didn't have the tools of my son, oh, when he went to school and I was taught about IEP, I didn't have to answer the phone. That was my babysitter. I felt isolated and exhausted. So, and then I never could have a job. So, because I got a first shift job, I never answered the phone. So, the school was, I learned how to survive instead of live. So, the school was my babysitter. So, I told the teachers that you're gonna get a dose of what I go through. So you have that angry, you have that angry street, as in, okay, this right here, you overwhelm. So that's why I know as a parent peer, when I hear a parent say, oh, he got to go to group home, he got to go. Because I understand when I used to say it, that just means I didn't try everything and I don't have nothing else to say. I really don't want to give my kid up, but I'm just telling you, I'm at the end of my rope. And that's how, that fear. But that was my babysitter. Especially if I take him to therapy, that's my time to get a nap in the car. Because once he get out, he finna terrorize the whole house. The neighbors finna call me. So those was our little smart ways of getting our little breaks in or whatever. And we had no social life. I never went on a vacation. I went from the labor room to doing labor. I don't know. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really real. Again, just this perspective of like, it's overwhelming to be a parent of a young person who has some really big mental health challenges. And so, Janelle, I don't know if you want to share more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. My biggest thing is I know that it can be human nature to want to like interpret a situation, to put it nicely, or judge a situation. Check on the parents. They may be overwhelmed. They may be experiencing their own mental health challenges. I'm a single mom. Their other parent is very, very uninvolved. So it's always been just me. I didn't have really this network of support. And there were times in my life I was so overwhelmed with balancing my children's needs and my work responsibilities that I had nothing left to offer, even for myself. I actually, before this meeting, was talking about how I switched to overnights. I work a third shift job now because all of my PTO was going to my kids' appointments, and I never had any time left for just taking care of myself or even going to my own appointments. I put off my own appointments for years because I didn't have enough time with managing all of my kids' needs and just pretend or just getting through every day and those phone calls from the school. Every time you see that, that's a panic attack right there because you're like, oh, do I even want to answer this right now? Do I have the capacity to hear what they're going to be telling me? So like to kind of piggyback off of something that Elise said about how people will say, like, I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you do it. I didn't know I had a choice. I like it almost made me like irritated for a while when people would say that. And because I recognized it as like just this place filler of I am very uncomfortable and I don't know what to say. So this is what I'm going to say to you right now because I think it'll like give you props. But I was just like, I didn't know that I had the opportunity to opt out of this because I probably would have if I could. especially some days. So check on the parents. Like, I worked in this field for a while, so I know my resources, and I am just that person. Will, if I don't know it, I'm gonna find out. And but not everybody has the capacity or the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So just remember that parents are people too, and they may have their own stuff going on.
Absolutely. And that's an important note to end on. I do have a little bit of advice that our kind of team talked about beforehand, so I'll put those in the chat. Now we're going to take a little 5-minute break as a whole meeting so that we can kind of recollect ourselves. I want to really just say thank you. And I think I was seeing a lot of that in the chat for Elise, Janelle, and Angela for bravely sharing this information here because it can be hard to be really open and honest. So we're going to take a 5-minute break and our meeting will resume at 11:05. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, hey, my clock says it's 11:05, so we are going to resume the meeting. And next, I am very, very pleased to be able to announce our next provider panel group. Now we're going to hear from providers working in children's mental health with families, and we're going to hear their perspective now. And I'm really, really pleased to be able to introduce Nelsie Stern, who is the Associate Director of School-Based Services with Journey Mental Health, Phyllis Greenberger, who is with Disability Rights Wisconsin, and Robert Kaminsky, who is a parent peer specialist and an OCMH lived experienced partner. And so as we're getting everybody on the screen here, I just want to welcome everybody, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists here to introduce themselves and then to describe the types of families that they work with. So Nelsie, let's start with you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and for such an amazing panel previously. I'm Nelsie Stern. I'm the Director of School-Based Services at Journey Mental Health Center in Madison. I oversee programs in partnerships with school districts around the county, so providing mental health assessment and group interventions, as well as individual therapy for a school district just outside of Madison. I'm also in support of the Family-Based Services Outpatient Clinic here at Journey Mental Health. So we see a really wide variety of families. In the school-based work, we're really focused on supporting kids with emerging mental health needs and making sure referrals can be provided to families through our assessment process, but then also really focusing on kids impacted by trauma. And then at the clinic, we are seeing a really wide range of kids. We have strong relationships with our county, so making sure that we can get kids who are involved with CPS or youth justice so that they can get the support they need. All the way, on the other end of the spectrum of kids who are dealing with all the things that were kind of named in Amy's data around, school pressure, anxiety, depression, social disconnection, and those types of issues too. So really wide ranging across the board is who we're seeing both come in through the clinic and then also get support through our school-based programming.
Great. Thank you so much, Nelsie. Phyllis, would you go next?
Sure, thank you. My name is Phyllis Greenberger, and I'd also just like to thank that previous panel. That was amazing. Very hard to follow. So I work at Disability Rights Wisconsin. I'm an advocate there. I've been there for quite some time, and Disability Rights Wisconsin is part of national organizations that are protection and advocacy agencies for people with disabilities. So we serve kids and adults, all different types of disabilities and different issues. And there's one in every state. We're not a state agency, we're a private nonprofit, but we get federal funding, at least for now. And we, again, do all types of advocacy. My role's been to work with children and families for the time that I've been there as an advocate. I do advocacy individually for kids in schools, kids in mental health services, a variety of different issues in that area. We also do a lot on systems and policy advocacy, which has been wonderful for me to be able to combine those two different things. So get a lot of calls from parents. A lot of the big issues that we see are getting services that kids need in school, keeping kids in school. We get a lot of calls about kids who are being excluded or getting shortened days or suspensions. And then the other piece is community-based services and just a lot of calls about not being able to get providers.
Great. Thank you, Phyllis. And Rob, would you introduce yourself and explain the types of families that you see as a parent peer specialist?
Yes, thank you. My name is Robert Kaminsky, and once again, the panelists who went before us. That was awesome. It was so great to see the transparency. So I'm a certified parent peer specialist. I was also at one time a trainer for the certified parent peer specialist program. I'm also been with the Office of Children's Mental Health since its inception back in 2014, so long time with them. I also am very active with NAMI. I help to facilitate a parents and caregivers group, of which is where I meet a lot of my parents that then I help with the certified parent peer specialists. So one of the things with the certified parent peer specialist is a lot of times so much of our system is designed to work with the children. As a certified parent peer specialist, we're there to work with the parents, with the family. And to do that, I mean, it's a different role, completely different. We have to be able to build up that trust, and we're kind of like a bridge between the system and parents. And we're not there to lead them as much as we're there to partner with them. As the whole goal is we want to empower them to be able to continue this journey on their own, which then gives us the ability to advocate for other parents. And I'm going to do a shout out to you, Phyllis. Phyllis advocated for my family many, many years ago. And to be able to see the change that makes, bringing in, being in an IEP meeting as a parent and saying the same thing over and over and over again, what you need, and then have somebody come in like Phyllis, that's an advocate, and then all of a sudden the IEP meeting listens to you, is so terribly wrong. But that's our whole role as an advocate, is if we could just open up that door. So big thing is we want to build that confidence. And in order to build confidence within parents, we really do need to educate and empower. A lot of the parents I work with are single parents. And like I say, a lot of them I work with NAMI Fox Valley up here in the Fox Cities. So a lot of the parents I work with come through there through NAMI, just calling up, and they don't know where to go. A lot of them are first times. This is brand new to them. Never been down this road, so don't know what to do to get the journey started.
Great. Thank you, Rob. And I know you touched on something that I'm going to specifically ask Phyllis about later, but thanks for leading us in that direction. So now I'd like each of our panelists to discuss from their lens what they see the family's role being in children's mental health. So Nelsie, let's start with you again.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know that I'm going to be able to add anything more than our panelists prior didn't already say. So I just really valued hearing from them, particularly about their openness to be a part of the work that their kids were needing to do in their different services. And that's really what we're hoping for, is partnership and collaboration. I think that is really tricky because our systems are difficult to work within. But what we see is, when we're talking about, say, outpatient therapy for kids, I think one of the tricky things is that we have kids come in for 50 minutes, 60 minutes, and then we don't see them again for a week, right? And so we see the role of the parents as being able to kind of support the work done in therapy in those 7 days between sessions, right? So understanding what the child's goals are in therapy, what strategies the therapist is teaching the child in the therapy session in order to make sure that those can be reinforced at home. And I get that that's really hard, right? I really hear our panelists from before naming that they really need a break during those sessions. And so we work hard to make sure that parents can have parent-only sessions so that they can have that time to really explore with the therapist what is going on for their kid, and utilizing the expertise of the parent to make sure that goals are met in that therapy session. In our school-based work, it's tricky, right? We know that our school systems have been, they come with a lot of historical baggage. So it can be really hard to feel like there's a way for parents to get support from schools at times. And I think that in every school district that I've worked with, there are people there who deeply care for the children that they're trying to support. And so finding your allies within that school, wherever you find them, might be the nurse, it might be the school social worker, might be the vice principal. But, that's really where I see a big benefit is building your team, building your village of community members, particularly in a school setting, so that when your child needs support, and doing it on the front end too, right? As early as you can, building those relationships so that they understand who you are, who your family is, and can really, build that team of people around before it's even needed, right? Ideally, which can be difficult.
And I just want to pick up, Nelsie, on something that you had said when we met ahead of this meeting. And you said, I understand that parents didn't all have a great experience at school. And you sort of touched on that on what you said, but I don't know if you have anything more to add about that. I mean, some parents had a horrible experience of their own in school.
Right. And that is real, right? I mean, so many people had terrible experiences going through public school systems. And then as parents, we have a really hard time only hearing the bad stuff about what's happening for our kids in the school and never hearing the positive stuff. And that's a little bit of my role in my relationship with the schools, is to continue to push on, how are we making sure that parents are getting the positive information? How are we building trust with those folks whose kids need the most support, or even a moderate amount of support? How are we changing the narrative of what has been going on in school districts for generations? And I think, as parents, and I'm a parent of 2 teenage boys, so, I have seen my kids go up through the public school system as well. I think it's really important that we keep pushing, and keep advocating and keep being present, because it is the system they're in, right? And within all systems, there are good people who are really trying to do their best. So finding those people is critically important.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Nelsie. Phyllis, what are your thoughts on the family's role, the families that you deal with, their role in their children's mental health? Oh, you're muted, Phyllis.
You'd think after this many years. Sorry, everybody. So I think that families are their child's best advocate. We heard from the previous panel, and in my experience as well, that parents know their children, and they are the best advocates. Part of our role is to help them have the knowledge and the information, and to educate them about systems, to educate them about what they can expect and what they can ask for. And so I think that in a lot of ways, my job is to educate parents. And then I think somebody talked about walking alongside their children. As an advocate, I try to walk alongside the parent to help them to gain the skills, to gain the confidence, and to get listened to. As Rob said before, and Karen, I think I mentioned this when you and I spoke before this meeting, it's very frustrating for me when I come in and I say something that a parent just said and they listen to me. I said that because the parent knows. I'm just repeating what they're seeing. And Robbie mentioned this, but it's very, I try to get schools to listen to the parents, or whatever system I'm doing advocacy in, to listen to the parents. And again, to help them have the confidence and maybe some skill to present it a slightly different way, or whatever. But I really do think parents are their family's best advocates, and they need the resources to know what to expect, what the rules are, what the law might say about this particular situation. Where can they get some additional help? I think a lot of additional help can be gotten from other parents. So the best support sometimes to parents is other parents who are either going through the same thing or went through it and are a little farther along in the system, like parent peer specialists can often provide for each other. And I think parents are they can be the best supports to their children. A lot of what I see when parents call us is that they're tired, and not just tired from parenting, which is certainly hard. Being a parent is hard, but tired from fighting systems as well. Like they know their child needs something and they can't get that. And so I think the professional's role is to support them.
Great. And
I
Phyllis,
don't know if
the
that
one thing
answered
that
your question,
stood out,
Karen.
one thing that stood out to me when we chatted is, you know, I don't want to get into federal and funding and all that stuff, but you said you're feeling the crunch in your world of, you know, funding shifts and all that, which to me makes it more important, that education aspect of what you're doing with families and parents. And I don't know if you have anything else to say about that.
Sure. I mean, funding, I'm sure a lot of you in this group are wondering what's going to happen next with some of those things. And I know that that's impacted schools because there's been some children's mental health funding that's questionable in terms of the federal government and what's going to happen next. So we've had to shift a little bit, and we're not able to go to quite as many in-person meetings as we used to. So we're trying to focus on providing that education for parents, where the resources are, what the information is, there's lots of good information out there. We're actually working on some, you know, videos, Instagram videos, and various things to provide information so that we can get it out in all different kinds of manners. But yeah, I think that educating, not just about like the information, like what is an IEP, we can certainly do that, but also where are resources, who can you call? I also talk to parents about who in the situation you're going to advocate in likes your child. So if it's school, for example, who at school likes your child? Bring them into the meeting, have them talk to other people at the school. Because if they're not listening to you, they might listen to them, just like they sometimes listen to an outside advocate. So yes, I think education is a big part of it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Phyllis. And Rob, your passion just shines through, your passion for family voice and parents. And I don't think it's just because of your experience. It's because you really believe in it. So, like, again, from your perspective, you touched on this a little bit. What is the family's role?
You know, that's a big question. To me, when I talk with parents, I really emphasize that to begin with, the parents have to listen to their children, to the youth. They really got to listen, because we don't want to be telling what we think our children need without actually knowing what our children need. And from that point, because and we heard it, the parents say it over and over again, nobody's listening to us. And I'll emphasize that to the parents, that if that's the way we feel, then that could be the way our children, our youth are feeling. So let's start off by listening to our children first, getting together, what do we want to accomplish as a family? And then let's start fighting, let's start advocating. And, you know, Phyllis hit it right on the head, tired of the system. And we heard it from the parents, you know, when the school calls, it's a PTSD moment. And I will tell you, my kids have been out of school for 10 years now, but I do service work for our local school district, and I still go into PTSD. I mean, I'm looking for a paper bag to hyperventilate in every time they call up, even though my kids are not even in there anymore. But yes, the parents are the biggest part of it. Time and time again, when I'm going to a psychiatrist and they start telling, when they take over the conversation and start telling us what we need to do, I typically will, let's do a timeout. You're an expert in meds. I do not know what these meds do. I don't know the side effects. There's too many of them for me to memorize. This is where you're an expertise. But I need you to listen right now to what the family is saying. Because a lot of times when you listen, you're going to find patterns in the behavior. And now you can do a better job at, if meds need to be evolved or if therapy needs to be evolved, we can better address the situation. But you can't know that unless you listen first. So for me, the biggest thing, the family role is, it comes right down to listening and then advocating and fighting.
And having the confidence to speak up in those situations, right?
Right. To have that education, to learn about, what can be done, what cannot be done. And that's where being a certified parent peer specialist, that's kind of our role is let's look for resources. let's go out there, let's see what's in the community, what can be done. When we were talking before, Karen, I know I mentioned this here, the county did a very unfortunate thing to us. Well, actually, I'm going to give a really clear example. Last CCS meeting, we've been having a hard time bringing in we were having a hard time meeting quota. And because of that, some of the people that were there made a suggestion about, how about some food? Because this is happening at lunchtime, and it was shot down right away. I mean, the county asked, what can we do to increase our quota so we can have our meetings? And they shot it down right away, saying, we don't have money in the budget for that. So why are you asking what do they need or what would they like if you're going to shoot it down right away? And think outside the box at this point. But it really, it does come down to the parents are the experts, and we really do need to start listening to them in all areas.
Awesome, great. And so now we're going to just slightly transition into strategies, because when I talked with each of you, and you've touched on some of the strategies, I think, already, but they bear repeating. So strategies for families that work in those moments. So Nelsie, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I did a little bit touch on them. And I think our speakers on the panel also spoke to this, is connecting with the systems and finding out what's out there in terms of support. I think that's really helpful. I did not know that Wisconsin was not a state that mandated training for mental health professionals in schools, or mental health trainings in schools. So that is good information. But I will say that at least in Dane County, schools will have some sort of response for mental health, and many have very strong partnerships, at least in the Madison area, with outside providers to make sure that students have access to some kind of intervention or mental health support. So knowing what those are is really good. Reaching out to the school and finding out, starting with the school social worker, which are always listed on schools' websites. So knowing who that person is, reaching out, letting them know who you are, who your child is, what your interest is in getting support for your child, or just being aware, right? I think so. We've been doing mental health assessments in schools, middle and high schools, mostly middle schools, for 20 years. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to parents who have no idea that occurs, even though they get information, right? And I don't think the school does a great job of making sure, despite the fact that they, make sure that families have the information. But I think, finding out about what programs are out there is really, really important. I think that's the really big thing.
Yeah. And I wanted to pick up on something that our panelists already said, but you said it when I met with you. It's like, be open to change. Sometimes it's that holding the mirror up to your own face, and it's kind of hard sometimes. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that. Kids' behaviors change when parents' behaviors change.
Yes. And I think that, Angela talked about that a lot, is kind of having that reflection of her granddaughter, kind of holding it up and saying, hey, this is my stuff. And then Angela really being self-reflective and saying, yeah, it's my stuff too. And I'm going to go and work on that. That to me is so powerful. I definitely got chills when I heard that, because it's exactly what I think a lot of our kids need, is for us as parents to be self-reflective. They are, they're still learning the ways of the world, right? We have a little bit more time on this planet to kind of see how things are working. So, and we're in control of their environment by and large. So we do know that when our reaction or response to our kids changes, there's often changes too. So really being open to that. And the reason why I really enjoyed the panel was because there was so much self-reflection and so much openness. And I think that is the way that kids heal, and the way that kids' wellness improves, is when our parents and our caregivers are open to being part of that and working on their own stuff as well. I think that's just incredibly powerful.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Nelsie. Phyllis, what strategies that you want to offer up?
So it's hard. I think a lot of has been covered, but I think one strategy that parents can use with whatever system that they're working with, whether that's schools, whether that's mental health providers, whether that's the county system, is relationship building and working sort of we're in this together. So I'm the parent here, and you have something to offer, but I also have something to offer. And together we're going to be much more powerful for my child. So how can I partner with you? And I think, sometimes that can be difficult because you've come up against some struggles trying to partner. But I think being able to keep that relationship, develop that relationship, again, find the people who like your kid, who you feel a budding relationship with, and capitalize on that. I think relationships are a really important strategy. I also think that other parents are part of the strategy, finding other parents, talking to other parents, find parents in your school, your community, come together around your kids, come together to do advocacy at your school, your county, wherever it is that you're trying to get services. In the school system, I think mediation can be a pretty powerful and helpful tool. So the special education system in Wisconsin does have a free mediation system to help resolve difficulties between a parent and a school around a individualized education plan or IEP. And there isn't a win or lose. So if you make a complaint or you have a hearing, there's a winner and a loser. Whereas in mediation, you can come together to try to solve the situation together. And I think the mediation system has some pretty good mediators to help with that. I've found that to be a pretty helpful process, and that a lot of parents I've worked with have really liked that process. Sometimes your only choice is to file some kind of complaint. You've reached the end of your rope. There's nothing else that you can do. But I've heard parents sometimes say in meetings, I've thought about filing a complaint, but can't we just resolve this? That can be a strategy. Like, hey, can't we just come together? One of my coworkers, we dubbed it the "aw, come on" argument. Come on, my kid is really struggling. Can't you just help me? So I think those can be some different strategies that people can use.
I love it. Thanks, Phyllis. Thanks for mentioning that. Rob, I know a lot you've talked about already what will answer strategies. And as I turn this over to you, I'd like you also to chew on the words natural supports, because so far I have not heard those two words in our meeting today. So Rob, strategies for families.
Strategies. One of them is empowerment and information. I mean, for parents to go out and try to find that education. A big one that they helped us is the county just told us when we started the CCS program, they couldn't describe it to save their soul. So they told us to just read DHS 36. That's one of the first things, if I'm working with a parent that's has a child in CCS, that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them, you need to read and you need to learn about DHS 36. Not that you have a lot of free time, and not that it's something that you want to do in the evening, or whenever you do have free time, but it's going to empower you and it's going to educate you. So that's a big one for me. Asking questions, just ask questions all the time. And when you talk about natural supports, yes, as Phyllis was saying, try to find there's groups of other parents, and that's one of the things I love about NAMI is that they can facilitate that. They're able to get you into a support group, but there's other organizations that have support groups too, and definitely get involved with it. Friends, family, and there again, it's going to be a lot of it. It's tough. I mean, in our neighborhood, our children are very lonely because other parents didn't want their kids playing with our kids. They saw our kids as being too disruptive. But at the same time, keep teaching our kids to always do the right thing, and to educate the community about what it is about our kids. Why do they have the behaviors that they have? And what can be done about it? Family can be tough because we can burn out family pretty quick. I remember taking my parents out to seminars about ACEs, about PTSD in children, so that they themselves can get more comfortable. Because the more knowledge we have, the more comfortable we are. Other thing that I really want to stress on is our local law enforcement. For the parents that we heard before that are in this process, I don't want to say that the challenges ever go away, but I have a daughter, and we actually, the two of us team up. We go around and we help with the crisis intervention trainings and crisis intervention partners throughout the state. We've done like eight this year. We're going to have about 8 of them for this year, where we help the police officers learn about adverse childhood experience. And she uses her experiences and interactions with the police to help teach the police what can be done differently. And through that, we have such a very strong relationship with our local police that it's phenomenal. I mean, we have a local program here. It's called SAFE program, where the police will interview, like my daughter, and find out what works, what doesn't work. You know, if my daughter's dysregulated, giving her a hug is not going to work. Threatening her is not going to work. Talking about your family dog, well, that's going to work. Talking about your squad car, that's going to work. Maybe even going a ride just around the block in the squad car, that's going to work. So it's really creating those partnerships with everybody that you can around you, because you never know. We have a fantastic psychiatrist who has gone to court for us. She shows up. We have a great therapist, and it sounds funny. I know we have a shortage of therapists, but I still do interviews. If we have to change therapists, I do interviews. And one of the things that has really, really helped us, especially if we have a child. So my children came from very post-traumatic stress disorder when they were young. They came from very violent families. And one of our kiddos, just by chance, we did a DVD where she was with a forensic investigator. And we still use that DVD anytime we switch to a therapist. Because now the therapist can know all about her past without my daughter having to relive it and go through it. So it is really the partnerships, and then learning about new things that are out there. The weighted blankets. You know, we couldn't afford a weighted blanket when they first came out, but the local church had a quilting group who made some, and they distribute, and they still distribute some to the shelters and stuff like that. So you never know what's out there unless you go looking.
Yeah, and I love that, Rob. And so with that, we're going to put a wrap on this part of our meeting. And I'm going to quick pull up a slide here while we all are so grateful for our second panel. Let me get rid of that. Here we go. So now you have an opportunity to join discussion with this set of panelists, and also our first set of panelists are going to be joining these rooms too. I'm going to open the breakout rooms. We have 15 minutes. And you can see here that you can go into this space with your questions, but you can also just look at these questions too, based on what you've heard from both panelists and your experience. What are your thoughts on the family's role in children's mental health, and what are the gaps? And so just a great opportunity now for a small group conversation. I'm going to open the rooms. You select the room you want to join. And if you're struggling with that, just hang out in the main session. Andrew and I will help you get into the right rooms. And I do need my panelists to select the room too.
And is anyone still here having a hard time getting to where you need to go? We can move you physically if that's necessary.
Yeah. It just takes a moment sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to help me get into a group? I'm trying to figure it out, but I'm not.
And who is that?
This is Emma Studer.
Yep. Which one would you like to go to?
You can put me in the first one.
Okay, you got it.
This is Sandy Licencia-Kari. Can you also put me into a group? I would like to join Family Advocacy.
Yep, Sandy, you're going in.
Hi, this is Rachel. I was hoping to join mental health systems.
Rachel, oh, CR. Okay, got you. Mental health systems. Yep. Ebony, group 1. I will move you there. Anyone else still in this main session hoping to go into a room? Otherwise, you can just take a pause if that's what you need right now.
And Andrea, I can probably handle it from here if you wanted to join your
Got it.
room. Okay,
Sounds good.
thanks very much.
Yeah.